Seattle starts with a bang in 1961 when the Washington Huskies go to the second consecutive Rose Bowl game, January 2nd, and win. These are changing times now for Seattle and maybe even the world. The above-mentioned events shake the world. In the case of Seattle, we once again enter the world scene April 21st, 1962, with Seattle's second World's Fair. It gives Seattle the Space Needle, the monorail, revives the Seattle Symphony, and eventually provides homes for the Seattle Repertory Theater, the Seattle Opera, and the Pacific Northwest Ballet. Nearly 10 million visitors come this time through our city. The Beatles visit us right here in Seattle in 1964. Bellevue Community College opens, and our population peaks at 574,000. The I-5 interstate is completed from Tacoma to Everett, and South Center Mall is ready for our busy shoppers. During this time, the overall Baha'i community increases in diversity. Baha'is from Seattle once more leave to open smaller towns like Yakima, the San Juan Islands, and various reservations in rural areas. It seems we just get started here and a new marching order arrives, but our energetic youth are inspired by the pioneering Baha'is who have gone before them and are anxious to help with the same here in Washington.
Finally, in 1963, the Baha'is of Seattle hear the call from Haifa, Israel. The intermediate hands of the cause of God call for the global election of the first Universal House of Justice. This is to commence with the first Baha'i World Congress in London, England. Several of the Baha'is from Seattle leave to be part of this historic occasion. We will listen to them tell us the stories of the global Baha'i community coming together in their traditional costumes at Royal Albert Hall in London. What follows is the election of 9 members to oversee the administration of the Baha'i world. Democratic elections from here on out occur every 5 years by all of the members of every national spiritual assembly in Haifa, Israel. For the first time, the Baha'i community experiences global democratic governance that will endure until we reach the era of the most great peace as promised by Baha'u'llah. He himself has laid this foundation and cornerstone for this changing moment in time. Each year, we send delegates from Seattle to elect our National Spiritual Assembly, and they in turn, every 5 years, travel to Haifa to elect the Universal House of Justice.
This also ends the 10-year crusade as started by our guardian Shoghi Effendi. Now we begin a series of plans that will give us goals towards bringing about racial unity, promoting the equality of women's rights, education for everybody, to name a few. Baha'is in Seattle once again join hands with organizations such as the United Nations, local clubs, and interfaith activities. This time surely we will stay home and start building up our own community. It is time to have some fun. In 1968, Dizzy Gillespie, the famous trumpet jazz player, finds the Baha'i faith through the sister of Mary Prow, who lived in Seattle not too long ago. Her sister's name is Beth McKenty. She has contacted Dizzy in Milwaukee. Their conversation soon changes from music to religion. They both have traveled the country with a different mission, but soon join hands. Over the following years, Dizzy, in numerous interviews and in his autobiography, shares that with this conversion, his creative period is just about to start and blossom. Music and spiritual enlightenment brings him on the road to musical genius. He is very generous with the Baha'is everywhere around the world. The Baha'is here in Seattle still remember his visits and how he will meet with them and play for them afterwards.
The 1970s finally sees the end of the Vietnam War. President Nixon resigns from office. President Ford becomes our new president. The Ayatollah Khomeini removes the Shah from power in Iran. President Carter becomes president in 1976, Watergate becomes a political scandal. And on the lighter side, ABBA arrives on the scene. Pablo Picasso dies and Fiddler on the Roof becomes the longest running musical. We get the first test tube baby, and Intel of California produces the first microchip. Andrew Lloyd Webber gives us Evita. The population of Seattle shrinks to 530,000. Jumaya opens its Asian retail store. The University of Washington's enrollment tops 32,600 students. Starbucks opens its first store in Pike Market, November 1st, 1971. Festival 71 launches what will become soon Bumbershoot. Gasworks Park opens in Wallingford. The Kingdom Dome opens its door to 54,000 Seahawk fans, our local NFL team. The Mariners plays their first game in Seattle on April 6, 1977, our baseball team. Microsoft opens its first East Side office in December in 1978. Our Baha'i community is trying to find their vision within Seattle. Many of our youth take planes to meet up with some of the old-timers at the front of the trenches in developing countries. A summer here on this continent and another on the other side of the world. They are indeed becoming global citizens and are sensitive, aware of different cultures. Burl Bearer, a well-known Baha'i, is a top disc jockey in the 70s in our KGR and KOL. His wonderful personality makes friends easily and is a joy to be around. He still gives the most wonderful firesides today.
And in speaking of radio and music, there's one musical group the Baha'is in Seattle welcome with open arms. This popular soft rock group comes into the scene in the 70s. Their names are Seals and Croft. Dash Croft meets his wife Billy, and they both become Baha'is. Dash Croft soon follows him into this latest world religion. In 1972, they record a song named Summer Breeze. And as one rides around the country today, we can still hear it almost daily on the radio. Eventually, they record a wonderful song about the life of Baha'u'llah, which warms the hearts of the Baha'is. After each concert, including the ones here in Seattle, they have asked the audience to stay and share with them a message of the Baha'i faith and its principles for today. Hundreds and hundreds of young people become Baha'is through them, including right here in Seattle. Looking back over the last 25 to 30 years, it can be stated with certainty that Seals and Crofts impacted more than any other individuals in the Baha'i world to enroll new members into our community. All of the baby boomers here remember those days with much fondness when they came to visit the Baha'is in Seattle.
In the late 70s, the Ayatollah Khomeini takes over ruling Iran as he ousts the Shah. Many of our Baha'i friends there become martyred and killed throughout the country. Those who have an opportunity leave Iran, and many settle in this country, including Seattle and Bellevue. Bellevue increases from 12 to 15 Baha'is to over 400 at this time. They welcome their brothers and sisters who have survived prisons, torture, and loss of family members and properties. For the first time in our Baha'i history, we're able to share the stories of our common history in person, 2 worlds apart. We suddenly all realize how easy it has been for us to be Baha'is here. We can openly talk about our vision for the world and exchange the principles for peace and racial religious harmony. Back in their homeland, this will cost them their precious lives. We realize that we can never take life for granted. We learn from each other. Those early Persian immigrants teach us patience, acceptance, a deeper capacity to meditate and pray, and how to look after each other in a more meaningful way. We learn to love their wonderful rice dishes and delicious fruit and meat dishes with exotic cardamom tea from a savoir. They learn from us to drink coffee and to enjoy different Northwestern dishes such as salmon. They were amazed how many of us have pets and keep them right in our homes and care of them as if they were our children. For many, this was and still is foreign to their culture. We help them to learn English so they can start a new life, and they contribute in infinite ways, enriching our Baha'i communities, God's invisible hand at work.
If we glance back to 1907, we find that only 14% of the homes in the U.S. had a bathtub, and only 8% a telephone. A 3-minute phone call from Denver to New York cost $11. We only had 8,000 cars in the U.S., with a total of 144 miles of paved roads. The maximum speed was 10 miles per hour. California had 1.4 million people and was the 21st most populated state in the Union. The average wage was 22 cents an hour. 90% of all doctors did not have a college degree. Coffee cost 15 cents a pound. A woman only washed her hair once a month and used only borax and egg yolks for shampoo. The population of Las Vegas was 30. Nobody ever heard of a crossword puzzle, canned beer, or iced tea. We never heard of Mother's or Father's Day. 2 out of every 10 adults could not read, and only 6% of all Americans graduated from high school. There were a total of 230 murders in the whole country. And yes, heroin and morphine were all available over the counter at local corner drugstores to clear up one's complexion and regulate the stomach and bowels. Now that we are approaching 2007, we find that our lives are dramatically different. Knowledge and information reaches into the homes of our youth and children through the internet at a rate that is unimaginable. Medicine and the sciences are beyond our comprehension. The universe has shrunk. Our genes and DNA discoveries allow us to reach into a world that feels like the day after creation.
100 years ago, Abdu'l-Baha counseled the Baha'is to take to heart, to listen, to keep our eyes glued to the horizon of our future. In the estimation of historians, this radiant century is equivalent to 100 centuries of the past. If comparison be made with the sum total of all former human achievements, it will be found that the discoveries, scientific advancements, and material civilization of this present century have equaled, yea, far exceeded the progress and outcome of 100 former centuries. The production of books and compilations of literature alone bear witness that the output of the human mind in this century has been greater and more enlightening than all of the past centuries together. It is evident, therefore, that this century is of paramount importance. Reflect upon the miracles of accomplishment which have already characterized it, the discoveries in every realm of human research, inventions, scientific knowledge, ethical reforms, and regulations established for the welfare of humanity, mysteries of nature explored, invisible forces brought into visibility and subjection, a veritable wonder world of new phenomena and conditions herefore unknown to man, now open to his uses and further investigation. The East and West can communicate instantly. A human being can soar in the skies or spend in submarines' depths. The power of steam has linked the continents. Trains across deserts and pierce the barriers of mountains. Ships find unerring pathways upon the trackless ocean. Day by day, discoveries are increasing. What a wonderful century this is. It is an age of universal reformation. Laws and statutes of government, civil and federal, are in the process of change and transformation. Sciences and arts are being molded anew. Thoughts are metamorphosed. The foundations of human society are changing and strengthening. Today's sciences of the past are useless. the Ptolemaic system of astronomy, numberless other systems and theories of scientific and philosophical explanation are discarded, known to be false and worthless. Ethical precedents and principles cannot be applied to the needs of the modern world. Thoughts and theories of past ages are fruitless now. Thrones and governments are crumbling and falling. All conditions and requisite of the past unfit and inadequate for the present time are undergoing radical reform. It is evident, therefore, that counterfeit and spurious religious teachings, antiquated forms of beliefs, and ancestral imitations, which are at variance with the foundation of divine reality, must also pass away and be reformed. They must be abandoned and new conditions be recognized.
Further, Abdu'l-Baha has written, the morals of humanity must undergo change. New remedies and solutions for human problems must be adopted. Human intellects themselves must change and be subject to universal reformation. Just as the thoughts and hypotheses of past ages are fruitless today, likewise, dogmas and codes of human invention are obsolete and barren of product in religion. Nay, it is true that they are the cause of enmity and conducive to strife in the world of humanity. War and bloodshed proceed from them, and the oneness of mankind finds no recognition in their observance. Therefore, it is our duty in this radiant century to investigate the essentials of divine religion, seek the realities underlying the oneness of the world of humanity, and discover the source of fellowship and agreement which will unite mankind in the heavenly bond of love. This unity is the radiance of eternity, the divine spirituality, the effulgence of God, and the bounty of the kingdom. We must investigate the divine source of these heavenly bestowals and adhere unto them steadfastly. For if we remain fettered and restricted by human inventions and dogmas, day by day the world of mankind will be degraded. Day by day warfare and strife will increase, and satanic forces converge toward the destruction of the human race.
And that was worded, that was by Abdu'l-Baha in the Baha'i World Faith. In the 80s, the Seattle Baha'is host a national conference to move the world, addressing race relations and how they can make a difference. Thousands come to be with them here in Seattle as they commit to come to terms with this deep-seated issue. 150 years of Baha'u'llah commanded that the Baha'is lead the world by example. The Baha'is right here in Seattle have come a long way. Our youth formed the diversity dance workshop here in the 90s. They dance and perform their hearts out to demonstrate the oneness of the races. They put their energies into this new blueprint of race of man. Some of their dances address social ills such as substance abuse, poverty, sexism, domestic violence, and injustice. Everywhere they go, they share the message of hope in their own artistic way. The Baha'i faith is one of the most integrated religious communities on earth. Today in Washington State has the second largest number of 85 local spiritual assemblies after California in the United States. In total, we have 140 communities and are happy to share that every county has Baha'is in the state of Washington.
There are now about 7 million Baha'is in every country on earth. But small as this may seem, one can just look on Google and notice that the Baha'i faith ranked among all of the world's religions by number of adherents in 13th place. The Encyclopedia Britannica still announces that the Baha'i faith is the second most widespread religion on earth. We thank all our early pioneers who worked so hard to cover the globe.
By the turn of the new millennium, the Baha'i world emerged into a new profound culture of learning and services. Seattle arose valiantly to the occasion over the last 20 years. By 2022, all six Seattle sectors have reached level 3 milestone, meaning each neighborhood was busy studying, holding devotionals, plus children's and junior youth classes from the ages of toddler to 15. This allowed for conversations anywhere between 500 to 600 contacts in our neighborhoods over time. By 2014 until 2022, Seattle opens the first Baha'i History Museum in the world. After that, it became Baha'i inspired and is now known as the Unity Museum. It regularly attracts hundreds of visitors from around the world. At Rizwan of 2022, the Baha'is worldwide and Seattle is preparing for several out of 10,000 conferences around the world. A whole new future is looking at us with the start of the 9-year plan.
I hope, are the words of Abdu'l-Baha while in Paris in 1911, that each one of you will become just and direct your thoughts towards the unity of mankind, that you will never harm your neighbors nor speak ill of anyone, that you will respect the rights of all men and be more concerned for the interests of others than for your own. Thus will you become torches of divine justice, acting in accordance with the teaching of Baha'u'llah, who, during his life, bore innumerable trials and persecutions in order to show forth to the world of mankind the virtues of the world of divinity, making it possible for you to realize the supremacy of the Spirit and to rejoice in the justice of God. By his mercy, the divine bounty will be showered upon you, and for this I pray.